What's going on, Twins fans, and welcome back to another episode of Twins Latest. I'm Sam Calder, and it may be Monday, but let's look on the bright side for a minute. If we can just get through these next couple days, the Twins have actual baseball games being played starting on Friday, so let's just get through this week, and then the baseball season is officially upon us. But before we dive into today's episode, please be sure to subscribe to the channel if you are not already for daily Twins updates with the season here. But without any further ado, let's get the week started. The Twins have been very busy in the free agent market, and over the weekend added another couple of names that could compete for a spot in the bullpen. They signed former Cubs reliever Julian Merryweather, as well as longtime reliever Andrew Chafin, both to minor league contracts with non-roster invites to spring training. Let's start with Merryweather. He comes over after spending the last 3 seasons with the Cubs. He had a good year in 2023, but that's been followed up by a couple of very rough seasons the past couple of years. He had a 5.79 ERA last year across 18 and 2/3 innings pitched, 15 strikeouts to 11 walks. His expected ERA was at 6.81, so despite having a rough season last year, it actually wasn't nearly as bad as it could have been. He gives up a lot of hard contact. He does not get many swings and misses. He does get a good amount of ground balls, but that's really the only thing he did well last year. He throws a fastball and a slider. The slider's a good pitch. The fastball really isn't. So to put it bluntly, I do not think Julian Merryweather will be in the Twins bullpen. As far as the other name in Andrew Chafin, he's also on the older side. He'll be 36 this coming season, but the numbers tell a very, very different story. Last year in 33 and 2/3 innings with the Angels and the Nationals, he finished with a 2.41 ERA and 36 strikeouts to just 19 walks. The walks are definitely the biggest red flag in his profile, but other than that, there's a lot to like with Chafin. He gets a lot of swings and misses, and he has always been really, really good, almost into the elite category when it comes to giving up hard contact. He has a 3-pitch mix with a sinker, a slider, and a 4-seam fastball. The slider is comfortably his best pitch from a movement perspective, but he also locates it better than any other pitch. Chafin has a career 3.35 ERA over 542 innings. His track record speaks for itself, to be honest. He's always been a really solid relief pitcher. He's also a lefty, and I know the Twins now have a few lefties that project to be in the bullpen, but I think it would be awfully hard to not put Chafin as part of that group. If they're worried about too many lefties, which I doubt they are, but if they are, Cody Funderburk is probably the casualty in that situation. But I think Chafin is comfortably one of the 8 best relievers in the Twins organization right now, and I think he firmly deserves a spot as a late inning reliever in the Twins bullpen. But yeah, that's the general gist on Julian Merryweather and Andrew Chafin. I definitely like Chafin a lot more, and I expect to see him with the Twins. But they could ultimately decide to cut ties with both, so we will see over the next month or so. But moving away from the bullpen, we are talking about a starting pitcher in today's prospect deep dive, and that pitcher is Charlie Soto. Soto is a 6'3", 210-pound righty, and he will only be 20 years old this season. The Twins spent the 34th overall pick in the 2023 MLB draft on him, right after they took Walker Jenkins 5th overall, and right before they took Luke Keeschall, who went 49th. So clearly, the Twins front office is optimistic in Charlie Soto. His fastball sits around 96 to 98 miles an hour on average, but he can run it up into triple digits. He throws a good hard slider in the upper 80s. That and his changeup both get a good amount of swings and misses, and both project to be at least solid secondary pitches, although it sounds like his changeup specifically is really becoming a good pitch. He also added a 2-seam fastball, which apparently moved a ton, according to the reports I read. So it sounds like we'll see Soto with a full 4-pitch mix next year, which would be great, especially if they're all, as good of pitches as they're reported to be. There's quite a bit of discrepancy when it comes to where Soto ranks within the Twins organization. Fangraphs has him as the Twins' number 6 prospect. MLB Pipeline has him at number 15. And for what it's worth, both of those rankings are from the end of the 2025 season, so they're outdated a little bit. I'd probably have him somewhere between 6 and 15, somewhere around number 10. I do actually plan on making my own top 30 prospects list for the Twins before the season starts, so I'll update you guys on that when the time comes, but I digress for now. Charlie Soto, much like the other top pitching prospects in the Twins system, has a ton of upside, but also a lot of ways things can go wrong. He spent all of 2024 at single A, finishing with a 5.23 ERA and 87 strikeouts to 33 walks over 74 innings. His fielding independent pitching, or FIP as it's referred to, was way down at 388. And FIP is another ERA indicator, just like expected ERA, but it only focuses on things the pitcher can control, so specifically home runs, walks, and strikeouts. It does not factor in balls in play, since that can be determined a lot by defense and other variables that go beyond the pitcher. So in other words, Charlie Soto got pretty unlucky in 2024. Then this past year, as a 19-year-old, he threw 13 innings at high single A, finishing with a 1.38 ERA and 15 strikeouts to just 4 walks. It was really looking like he was starting to turn a corner, but then he had a tricep strain, which actually wound up ending his season. He was initially placed on the 7-day injured list with that tricep strain. Then he got moved to the 60-day IL in June. But then in August, he underwent surgery to fix a partially detached bone spur in his throwing elbow, which makes me wonder if that tricep strain was actually a little more serious. And I did some digging on this as well. Bone spurs pretty commonly form in the tricep tendon, which is right on the tip of your elbow. So my guess, as someone who has no medical background, is the Twins thought this was, a regular tricep strain, but eventually discovered the bone spur, and that's why they moved him to the 60-day IL, as well as why he didn't have surgery until August. From everything I've read, it sounds like he'll be healthy for opening day, but still not an ideal situation to be bouncing back from as a 20-year-old with only 87 professional innings under your belt. While virtually everything improved while making the jump from single A to high single A last year, it's worth noting it was an incredibly small sample size. This is 3 starts worth that we're talking about. And while he did look very impressive, there's no denying that. It's impossible to say that that's what we can expect from Charlie Soto going forward. But assuming he's back to full health on opening day, he should continue to be one of the best Twins young pitching prospects in the lower levels of the minors. I anticipate he'll probably be back at high single A to start the year again in 2026. But if he picks up where he left off, he will not be there for very long. I'd like to see him ideally get somewhere between 30 and 50 innings at AA this year. Just staying healthy, though, is priority number 1. So if it's not that many innings, that's all right. But I'm really excited about what the upside case is for Charlie Soto, and I think you should be too, because the stuff is more than good enough for him to be a top 5 Twins prospect at this time come next season. But shifting gears from Charlie Soto, Derek Shelton over the weekend was asked about what he wants the Twins roster to look like. And I don't have the full quote in front of me, but the overall message was he wants it to be a blend of proven players and leaders, guys who are trying to take that next step in their career, as well as hungry young players looking to make a name for themselves. That's a very managerial answer, but I wanted to briefly take a look at a few names who could wind up making the opening day roster that we don't see coming. And the first name I want to mention is reliever Liam Hendriks. 3 years ago, he would be a lock to make the Twins bullpen because he was one of the best closers from 2019 to 2022. That level of performance has not been there since, but he's one of those proven, established leaders in the bullpen who could really help the younger bullpen arms. And if he has a good spring, that would really help his chances of making the opening day roster, of course. Another name to monitor is outfielder Emmanuel Rodriguez. We have not done the prospect deep dive on Emmanuel Rodriguez yet this offseason. That is still to come. But he's one of the top 2 to 4 prospects in the Twins system, depending on who you ask. And despite not having any MLB at-bats to this point, a strong spring could make Derek Shelton seriously consider adding him to the opening day roster. He hits the ball plenty hard, and he's got the plate discipline. His biggest issue to this point has been the strikeouts. But if he puts the ball in play more this spring, and he hits 350, 400 even on the high side, I'm not sure he's starting to AAA. And then the last name I want to briefly mention is Connor Prelip. And while I don't know what his role would look like, I don't know if he'd be a starter or maybe a long reliever out of the bullpen, Prelip has the stuff to overpower hitters and get plenty of whiffs. I think the biggest thing this spring to be looking at will be his pitch mix, and if he adds another pitch, as well as if he's able to locate his secondary pitches, because that's kind of what bit him last year. He got plenty of whiffs, but sometimes he'd leave the ball in the zone, and hitters would, make him pay for that, especially at AAA, the highest level of the minors. If he's consistently painting corners, though, and dotting guys up this spring, he is going to be really, really tough to leave off the roster just with how much raw upside he has. But those are a few names that could potentially shake up what the Twins opening day roster might look like. And then, as we always do, we're going to wrap up the episode with our Twins player preview. And today we are looking at pitcher Taj Bradley. I should say this before I get too far. I definitely don't think it's a 100% guarantee that Bradley opens the year in the majors. His role is very much still up in the air, but even if he's not on the opening day roster, he'll inevitably be with the Twins sooner than later. Bradley came over from the Rays last year in a 1-for-1 swap with Griffin Jax at the trade deadline in July. He was far from exceptional in the majors, finishing with a 6.61 ERA and 32 strikeouts to 12 walks with the Twins over 31 and a third innings after that deadline. He also did throw 111 innings with the Rays, and he had a 4.61 ERA there. But that's still not what you're looking for out of a major league pitcher. Obviously, you want that ERA to be in the 3s and not the 4s or the 5s or the 6s, as we saw with the Twins. Looking at his advanced data, he was solid when it came to giving up hard contact. His hard hit percentage and barrel rate were both above league average metrics, and his average exit velocity allowed was right in the 50th percentile. His expected ERA was down at 4.10, which isn't nearly as bad as his actual 5.05 mark. Still not great, though, and he didn't get many swings and misses. He didn't get hitters to chase. All in all, it was not a great season for Taj Bradley. Because of his struggles in the majors, the Twins optioned him to AAA, and he was actually worse there. He finished with a 7.53 ERA and 18 strikeouts, only to 2 walks over 14 innings. Yes, the strikeout to walk ratio was exponentially better, and yes, it is a very small sample size, but he got hit hard, and he gave up 21 hits in those 14 and a third innings, including 4 home runs. And because of that, I could definitely see him back at AAA to begin the season. Looking at his arsenal, he has a 5-pitch mix. He's got a 4-seam fastball, a cutter, a splitter, a curveball, and a sinker. According to Stuff Plus, all of them besides a splitter were above average from a movement perspective, but there's obviously more to a pitch than just how it moves, because he could not locate his pitches last season, and that's a big part of why he gave up 23 home runs across his time in Minnesota and Tampa. His strikeout to walk ratio was about 2.3 to 1. I'm rounding up slightly, but either way, that's not a good mark. You typically want to see bare minimum a 2.5 to 1 strikeout to walk ratio as kind of a benchmark. He was at 3.3 to 1 in 2024, so he's done it before. The command was just not there last season. Additionally, he had a swinging strike rate of just 10.1%. That might sound like a perfectly fine number, but you're looking for somewhere in the 12 to 13% range. So Bradley was really not that close, and that 2% margin that he was off by is a lot bigger than it actually sounds. I've talked a lot about this with him as far as, reasons he could start the year at AAA or even in the bullpen as a relief role. But there's still enough upside where Taj Bradley could become a quality starter for the Twins. He's only going to be 25 this year, and as I mentioned, his pitches move enough for them to work at the major league level. He also gets ahead in counts at a really high clip. His first pitch strike percentage over the course of his career is over 60%. I've talked about the importance of first pitch strikes as a pitcher. Shohei Ohtani last year hit 227 when working from a 0-1 count. He hit 329 on the other hand when working from a 1-0 count. It is a massive difference when you're ahead in the count as a pitcher, and Bradley is very, very good at doing that. There definitely were some things to clean up, but the stuff is absolutely there. When I did my way too early predictions for what the Twins opening day roster would look like, I had Taj Bradley coming out of the bullpen, and a lot of that will depend on how guys like Zebby Matthews and Simeon Woods-Richardson look this spring. Bradley definitely could wind up in the starting rotation, though. This is not to say he cannot. It's also possible that Derek Shelton wants a 6-man rotation, and Taj Bradley benefits from that. But I still think the most likely outcome is Bradley is, more of a long reliever / spot starter for the Twins. There's just too much depth in the Twins system and too few spots in the rotation for Bradley. That's kind of how I see it. And we'll see. I mean, guys like Liam Hendricks or Andrew Chafin, who we talked about earlier, could wind up getting a roster spot, and that ultimately pushes Bradley down to AAA. But there's a lot of ways that this season could go for Taj Bradley, and I think spring training will have a lot to do with what his role ultimately ends up looking like in 2026. But that's all I've got, and so we're going to wrap it here. Thank you guys for tuning into Twins Latest. If you enjoyed it, please do me a huge favor and subscribe to the channel. It helps me out a ton. If you've got a Twins-related topic, or topics, I should say, that you want me to talk about in a future episode, please let me know down below in the comments. But until next time, this has been Twins Latest, and I'm Sam Calder, and I'm out.